Okay, so I want to talk about what's been happening with James Somerton and him being targeted, because there are a number of things about it that I'm very uncomfortable about, and I swear I'm going to get back to making martial arts videos at some point. I know this is another Breadtube video, but I don't see anyone else making this, so I'm actually planning to do one about capoeira. I've been learning it for months alongside Surely Fit. I think it's a very valuable experience, been very fulfilling. I want to talk about that. Anyway, so there are a number of things that I am somewhat concerned about that have come up as a result of the way that James Somerton has been targeted. So there are just a few things I'm going to discuss. So first of all, I want to discuss about the fact that there are actually far worse people than him, and that gets kind of ignored, including by people who have gone after James Somerton. And I also want to talk about something that I've noticed in this, which is the erasure of the gay man. I'm sorry, but you have been doing this, a lot of you. This is a very serious problem. You really need to think about it. And then I want to talk about what seems to be the main motivation for James Somerton being targeted. And unfortunately, it sort of seems to me it's a bit like it's more that they wanted to get him and they were just kind of lucky that they found something on him. I've got to be honest with you, because there's definitely worse things on other people that they're completely ignoring. Anyway, so the worst people. Now, I think it's worth pointing out here that these are just some that I know about. There's going to be others that I don't know about who are being overlooked, where, you know, people who have been hurt by them are being silenced. This is, unfortunately, there is going to be more, okay? So, like, for example, there's the guy who used to do the videos for We're in Hell. Now, what I recall, the only reason that became a thing enough for him to stop making videos was because that was really pushed for by the leftist cooks, who aren't the biggest bread tubers by a long way, okay? They're not tiny, but, you know, there are far bigger bread tubers who were and including We're in Hell himself, actually, he was bigger than them. And he was being protected by others, and yeah, that's a real problem. And I don't see H Bomber Guy's 2-hour video on abusive men in Breadtube like that. I don't see it, okay? And I think it's worth pointing out that James Somerton has not been accused of the kind of abuse that the guy who made the videos that We're in Hell have been accused of. I don't want to play hierarchy of abuse, but I would say that was worse than plagiarising. I've got to be honest with you. And then there is the small matter of someone who worked for H Bomber Guy having been accused of getting someone drunk and raping them. And I did see, it came up on Twitter, these kind of private messages between H Bomber Guy and the accuser, and H Bomber Guy was basically doing that bullshit, oh, I'm not sure if you really understand what happened there. I don't know if it happened the way you said it did. Maybe you didn't really understand. He was doing that, okay? He was doing that, dismissing this person's you know, allegations, this person's testimony, okay? He was doing that, and it seems to be because this person who was being accused was very important to him and his work, okay? Now, James Somerton has never been accused of getting anyone drunk and raping them. He's not, okay? Sorry, but plagiarising people is not as bad as getting someone drunk and raping them. It's not. And it's just, it's very bothersome. I want to know where H Bomber Guy's video on a whole bunch of people who have abused people in like that in Breadtube is, I want to know where that is. When's he doing that video? Okay. Now there was so there was this boyfriend that James Somerton did talk about. He was an online boyfriend, lived in Texas, and he did actually come up in some of the Reddit threads, and he did say, that he was kind of finding this quite enjoyable because he had dated James Somerton online way back when he was 13 or something. But he didn't want to talk about what James Somerton was like then, because he said, well, what he was like when he was 13 was kind of not really relevant. You know, what he was like as a boyfriend when he was 13 was not relevant. And, well, the thing is, right, he definitely, I'm pretty sure if James Somerton had got him drunk and raped him, he would have mentioned that, okay? I think the most he said was that he was a bit possessive, like online, and I don't know exactly, but he wasn't really prepared to go into it because he didn't feel like it was relevant. But I'm pretty sure if he'd done something as bad as, you know, this person who worked with H-Bomber guy had been accused of, or if the guy who did the We're in Hell videos has been accused of, he would have mentioned it, okay? I think he would have. And now let's talk about Beau of the Fifth Column, okay? Obviously, bit of a pet hate of mine. The reason he's such a pet hate is because everybody keeps snoring, including H-Bomber guy, okay? I actually posted my first video about Beau of the Fifth Column that I made in March in H-Bomber Guy's subreddit, okay? Now, that video is about what Beau of the Fifth Column did when he was a military contractor, his first job out of university in 2001 was working as an independent military contractor, helping, as he put it, to kidnap foreign nationals who were bad guys, he said, to be handed over to the US government. Now, given the timing of that, given that was post 9/11, I would suggest that it's likely a lot of those people ended up in Guantanamo Bay and worse. And he did later say that he stopped doing it and others stopped doing it because they were starting to be asked to go after people who were funding mosques, which does kind of suggest, you know, Muslims, brown people. Anyway, so that was kind of a different video from where, and I made that after Bad Empanada had made his videos about Beau the Fifth Column being a human trafficker. And obviously he wasn't the first one to talk about that. That was Mike from PA. That goes back to 2020. So this human trafficking stuff's been going around for a while. That's been ignored by H-Bomber Guy and all these other people who've been gunning for James Somerton. And then after I posted this video about what he did as a military contractor in H-Bomber Guy's subreddit, that got removed. Now, I did check his subreddit first to see if it fitted with the other posts there. I thought it did fit with the other posts there. I know it wasn't specifically an H-Bomber Guy thing, but, you know, a lot of the stuff there wasn't specifically H-Bomber Guy, okay? It felt like to me like it fitted. It was removed with no explanation. I asked for an explanation. I messaged the mod, who seems to be H-Bomber Guy himself, all right? The mod was listed as r/H-Bomber Guy, or u/H-Bomber Guy, and I got no reply about that. So, let's be clear here. H-Bomber Guy has ignored all the stuff about human trafficking. He removed my video where I was talking about what Beau the Fifth Column did when he was a military contractor from his subreddit. He has been ignoring stuff about Beau the Fifth Column. He's been silencing stuff about Beau the Fifth Column, okay? Beau the Fifth Column is a lot worse than James Somerton, all right? James Somerton's never been accused of profiting from human trafficking. He has never, like, been convicted of anything in relation to human trafficking, all right? Not that I know of. He's never been accused of kidnapping anyone. He's certainly not been accused of kidnapping anyone to hand over to the US state to be tortured by them and imprisoned for years without trial. He's never been accused of anything like that, okay? And yet, he has been deserving of 2 hours of video by H-Bomber Guy. This doesn't seem right to me. I'm not saying that James Somerton is okay or that this lessens anything that badness that James Somerton did, but he really isn't as bad as a lot of people a number of people in Breadtube, okay? Now, so there is a bit of it. I do find it quite interesting how they've made such a big thing about plagiarising, because, well, there's quite a long tradition of plagiarising, going all the way back to Shakespeare, for example. Shakespeare has been accused of a lot of plagiarising. Obviously, we can't be sure because it's so long ago, but he did churn out an awful lot of plays. It's not that easy to come up with fresh ideas for all of those plays. He had to, I think, as well, like James Somerton felt like he had to. And when I was involved with the production of a comedy of errors once, and I read in my little book about it that about where he'd got his ideas for the characters in the play from, and it had been from other plays, okay? And apparently it's quite common to plagiarise in Elizabethan times when he lived, okay? So I don't think he lifted whole passages like James Somerton did, although when I did try looking it up, and apparently there are some suggestions he did, but I'm not going to go into that. The point is, Shakespeare has been widely accused of plagiarising, and there are grounds for that. And hey, guess what? Abigail Thorne, who I'm going to talk about later, is quite a big fan of his. But I guess it's okay if he does it. And then Bruce Lee. I'm a martial artist, okay? I'm going to mention Bruce Lee or something to do with martial arts. All right, and Bruce Lee, he was into philosophy. He used to talk about philosophy a lot. He's well known for that. And now a lot of Bruce Lee haters, they like to say, well, Bruce Lee didn't really have a proper philosophy. He just copied other philosophers and stuff. Now, I was at a martial arts academic conference a few years back because I'm a fucking nerd. And there was this man from Hong Kong there doing some speaking. And he did talk about this. Maybe I even asked him about it. Now, he said that, yes, Bruce Lee did copy all of his philosophy. That's kind of what people in China do, right? Everybody in China, he said, reads philosophy. Everybody in China is a philosopher, a bit like everybody in France is a philosopher, okay? So you're all supposed to be a philosopher, you're all supposed to read philosophy, and also you do kind of regurgitate the stuff that you've read, okay, in China. They do copy stuff in China. It's not copying stuff that is the issue as far as people in China are concerned. It's whether or not you copy it well. So the thing with Bruce Lee is, yes, he was getting his ideas about philosophy from other philosophers, but he did it well. He made them sound good. So, the Be Water, my friend, was from somewhere else, but he said it in a way that made it sound really good. And so that is fine. That is even great as far as the Chinese are concerned. So this is a very cultural thing. Now, obviously, James Somerton should not have just stolen people's work and made money off of it without, like, at the very least citing them or paying back to them anything that he made with their help, kind of thing. That is the thing that he should have done. But I think people are kind of talking about James Somerton like his plagiarising is uniquely awful or something, and it's not necessarily. There are a lot of people out there who do plagiarise. It's quite a long tradition of it, go back hundreds of years. And I find it a bit galling that H-Bomber guy is even like talking about doing this fundraiser for all the people that James Somerton has kind of plagiarised, which, okay, fine, they should get money for that, but when's he going to do a fundraiser for all the people who've been put in Guantanamo Bay by the Fifth Column, possibly, allegedly? Okay, when's he going to do that? When's he going to do a fundraiser for all the women that both the Fifth Column exploited and made millions off of? When's he going to do that? Don't think he's going to. Now, I need to talk about the erasure of the gay, because this is a thing that I've seen a lot, okay? So, one of the things that James Somerton did complain about, and this is my understanding, was that gay voices, specifically gay men voices, are not there, okay? Erased even, right? And we need gay men's voices. Now, the thing is, there's been a lot of talk about this I've seen, where people have been saying things like, yeah, well, H-bomber guys get bisexual, so what's he talking about? We've got the queer voices. Okay, being bisexual is not the same as being gay. Being a bisexual man is not the same as being a gay man, okay? It's just not. And now I'm bisexual, I'm omnisexual, I'm on the bisexual spectrum. So I know what it is to be erased as a bisexual person. I know how hard it is to get recognised as a bisexual person. But when you say it's ridiculous for James Somerton to say he is the only gay in the village, because look, we've got H-bomber guy who is bisexual, you are erasing the gay, all right? Because H-bomber guy, as a bisexual, cannot speak on behalf of the gay male experience. He can't, because he's bisexual. James Somerton is the one who has that gay male experience, gay man experience, all right? I just find this a bit concerning that you don't seem to recognise this. And so there's another thing, right? So there's a thing that's often said, which is that the younger generation of gay men suffer terribly because, or have problems because, there are no older gay men, because, or not many, because nearly all of them were wiped out by this awful pandemic, AIDS. It was terrible, okay? And then lesbians were left to pick up pieces, they looked after them, and so on, okay. Now, I have seen it said that it's really misogynist to say there are no elder gays for the younger generation of gay men, because look, we've got all these lesbians. Okay, so let's swap that around, shall we? Let's say it was lesbians, nearly a whole generation of lesbians that were wiped out in a pandemic, and the gay men were the ones left picking up the pieces, okay? Let's say that. Would you then say it's misandrous to say that there are no older lesbians to give the younger lesbians the understanding that the older lesbians have gained throughout their experience of life? Because look, you've got all the gay men. No, you wouldn't say that, would you? Because you know that gay men do not have the experience of lesbian women. Don't you? You know that, I'm sure. And so you would not expect gay men to be able to give the younger generation of lesbian women what the older generation of lesbian women could give. So why are you saying that lesbian women can completely replace gay men when it comes to the younger generation of gay men? Why are you saying that? I'll tell you why. It's because you don't really get that gay men are a distinct group of their own, okay? It's like you don't believe that. It's like you don't even believe gay men are real. And that's very concerning to me. And it goes all the way up to, and this is one of the reasons I'm talking about this. I know I feel like I'm kind of really going on about this. But the reason I am, partly, is because I watched Jessie Gender's video about James Somerton that she made in the wake of this video about H-bomber guy. And in it, she talked about her own drama with James Somerton a year ago, where he'd complained that there were no gay voices on Nebula, and being shut out of Nebula meant there were no gay voices in Nebula. And she said, well, yeah, but there's loads of queer voices. Like, I'm a trans woman and I do my trans woman stuff and I talk about being trans. And there's non-binary people, and there's lesbians, and there's all these queer people, okay? The thing is, what she was doing there was lumping gay men in with everybody else. She was including gay men in the queer umbrella and not thinking of them as needing a distinct voice of their own, right? Gay men are not non-binary people, okay? Gay men are not trans women. Yes, it's great that Jessie Gender gets to talk about her trans stuff, all right? But her trans things, her trans issues are not the same as James Somerton's gay man issues, or any gay man's issues, okay? And that's the problem here. You know, when she was, and I do know that James, like, my understanding was that James Somerton was saying that, like, they weren't talking about gay man issues. They're okay with gay men as long as they don't talk about being gay. And now he did sort of say that trans women being allowed on there were allowed because they didn't really talk about being trans. Now, I know that's not true. Like, I know that Jessie Gender does talk about being trans, but she doesn't just talk about being trans. She talks about Star Trek, which is great. But I feel like Jessie Gender was really kind of ignoring the fact that being a gay man is different, because she was sort of lumping gay men in with queer, under the queer umbrella, okay? And she was kind of saying that because she gets to talk about trans stuff, that means that the gay man stuff is covered or something. That's what it sounded like she was saying. And it's not, okay? There is this erasure of gay people, of gay men specifically, that's been going on. And now I missed the drama, but I'm guessing this is kind of what she was saying at the time. I'm guessing she was missing that at the time, okay? So I think it's really important to understand that gay men, not the same as trans women, all right? And I feel like when she was saying because she did seem to say that he was saying that there were no queer voices, right? Which I don't think he was saying. He was actually more talking about gay men's voices specifically, and the fact that gay men's issues were not being discussed. But I think that was projection on her part, because she's been lumping gay men in with under the queer umbrella and not recognising gay men as needing a distinct voice. And I think that's what happened there. I've got to be honest with you. And I think a lot of you really need to think about the erasure of gay men. You really do, because I did see James Somerton talk about this in the live stream, and I did try to think about all the gay men in online spaces, and well, I've got to be honest with you, the only ones I could think of were James Somerton, Black Redguard, who's a gay black man, a Maoist, and the What's the Safe Word guides, Amp and Christopher, I guess. Black Redguard is a gay black man, but he doesn't really talk about being gay very much. He talks about Malcolm X, he talks about Black Panthers, he talks about being a Maoist, he talks about being involved in democratic socialists, I think. He'll talk about that, but he doesn't really talk about being gay. He doesn't really talk about the history of gay activism or anything like that. And I've got to say, H Bomber Guy doesn't talk about being bisexual. I think I might have already said that, but simply existing as a gay person doesn't mean the gay voice is there necessarily, or the gay discussion is there, is the point. Okay? Now, the What's the Safe Word guys do talk about being gay, but and their channel is focused primarily on kink, which I do watch a fair amount of. I think they're great. I really find them quite interesting. And they don't entirely talk about gay stuff. They talk about trans people as well. They're very good about that kind of thing. Amp did a video about being demisexual, and that's when I realised that I was demisexual. So it's been very helpful for me to watch that stuff. Now, I think it's a really important thing to point out here is that one of the reasons I was watching James Somerton's stuff so much is because he was one of the only gay voices, okay? He really was. And I'm going to say it again. He was a gay man's voice, all right? Not a non-binary voice, not a trans voice, not a bisexual voice. He was a gay man's voice. And he was talking about the history of gay men in films. He was talking about gay men, the representation of gay men in series on like Amazon or wherever. He was talking about the representation of gay men in comics, all right? He was talking about that. No one else really talking about that. And it's something that I'm very interested in, right? But those gay men's voices, they're not there. And you need to think about that, because if there had been more gay men's voices, right, I might have realised that he was talking rubbish, because there might have been a gay man out there talking about this stuff but getting it right. But the lack of gay men meant that it was easier for James Somerton to lie, basically. Now, I don't get the impression that the What's the Safe Word guys are much involved with or much included in Breadtube spaces. They're really not. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because they talk about kink, maybe it's because they're gay and you're all a bit like, ooh, I don't know about gay, or you just don't really get that being gay is a distinct thing. I really think you should think about trying to include more gay men, specifically gay men, okay? Don't feel like I can say this enough, because you clearly haven't been getting this. Any of you, well, hardly any. I've not seen anyone out there understanding that the gay man's voice is a very distinct and different thing from all the other voices in the LGBTQ plus spectrum, okay? They need their own voices. Please think about lifting them up, think about including them, and then maybe won't get people like James Somerton getting away with scamming people like that, okay? Okay, now we're going to get on to the last thing about why it seems like he was targeted. Because like I said, I'm not entirely convinced it was all about him plagiarising. I'm a little bit suspicious that they wanted to target him. And it was just luck that they happened to find stuff on him that they could get him for, okay? Now the thing is, I watched Abigail Thorne's video about a man who stole her work, and it wasn't James Somerton, it was someone that she actually worked face to face with. Now the thing is, I enjoyed that video, I thought it was great, I watched it right to the end, and then she started talking in the end about this film that she was making. Oh, cool. Dracula's Ex-Girlfriend. Oh yes, Dracula's Ex-Girlfriend. Sounds like a really cool film, okay? Then she was saying it's streaming on Nebula. I think, hang on a minute. And then she was talking about these people who are involved. And a lot of these people who are involved in making this film, they're people who are gunning for James Somerton. And, well, it just so happens that James Somerton was actually trying to start making films, right? Get into making queer-focused films with queer voices. Gay voices, but other queer voices too, okay? And now that's all been completely destroyed by this. And I've got to say, the fact that Abigail Thorne's making this film with Nebula, with these people who were gunning for him, it's a little bit too much of a coincidence. I've got to be honest with you, I'm not comfortable about it. And then I did see something come up on Twitter, Peter Coffin, unfortunately. Like, the guy's such a clown. I only follow him because I started following him ages ago before I realised what he was. But anyway, and he's kind of amusing to keep an eye on. But the thing is, right, in this Substack post, it did talk about various things that they kind of looked into about it. And it seems that Nebula have been thinking about doing their own filmmaking. And it's kind of handy, or it seems kind of handy for them to destroy what's effectively the competition, right? James Somerton, they probably saw as competition for their own queer-focused filmmaking, for their filmmaking, right? Now, I think there is space for lots more queer-focused filmmaking, okay? I think there would have been space for both Nebula's queer-focused filmmaking and James Somerton's queer-focused filmmaking. And I feel like this is a thing that happens a lot in marginalised groups. Like, you kind of feel like other people doing a similar thing to you, a competition that has to be eliminated. It happens with women getting taken down by other women. It's a really bad thing. And I feel like there is a bit of an issue there, and not saying that, you know, James Somerton, would have been good for James Somerton to make those films. He'd have probably been plagiarising again when he made those films. But I've got to be honest with you, it seems like that was the motivation, really. It wasn't entirely good motivations behind targeting him, and I feel like that's a bit of a problem too. And I gotta be honest with you, I do think there's homophobia here. I think there is a lack of understanding about gay men. I think there's an assumption that gay men, because they're men, they have privilege, and to an extent they do, all right? But a lot of that privilege is really negated by the fact that they are gay, especially if they're out, especially if they're obviously gay, like James Somerton, Like the What's the Safe Word guys, okay? They're very obviously gay. They're very open about it. You know, one of the things that James Somerton used to complain about was the gay men who would like try and be like the straights, you know, like Peter Buttigieg, for example. And we all know people like that, you know, marginalised people from marginalised groups who try to fit in with like normal people. And they are quite annoying. But I do feel like this has been as much about getting a gay man. I'm sorry, you're going to have to do better with with lifting up gay voices, okay? Fair enough, James Somerton's bad, but please, please think about your attitude towards gay men, okay? Try and find gay men, lift up gay men's voices, all right? Specifically gay men's voices, not bisexual men, okay? They're different. Please try and remember that. Not non-binary men / men, okay? Not them. You need gay men specifically. Please look for them, lift them up. We need them. We need a broad spectrum of these people, just like we have a fairly good spectrum of trans people and non-binary people, because, you know, trans people don't have to always talk about being trans, and that's great because there are enough of them to kind of share that load, all right? We need more gay people so that it's not just the one person who's taking it upon themselves to talk about all of this, and then, you know, a year or two down the line it gets discovered that they've lied about everything, okay? This is part of the problem. Find the gay men, lift them up. And I would include the guys from What's the Safe Word with that, please. Try and reach out to them. Have them on your live streams. Ask them to talk about gay man issues, please.